Alright guys, BLM here, back with a new video. In this video, I'll be talking about the games that I played from the year of 2019. Now yes, this video is very late. I initially planned on getting this video out around like February or March, but there's just too many games to play. And even then, I didn't even play every game that I initially planned on playing, but I mean, I gotta get this video out, right? So here we are, 5 months late. I'm finally getting out my video here on the year of gaming for 2019. So I already did a video last year about my game of the years for the years of 2009 through 2018. So obviously here I'll be talking about my game of the year for 2019. But since we're so late into the year of 2020 at this point, I decided to change the video up a little bit. Instead of just talking about like my top 10 games and going through the game of the year, I decided why not just talk about every game I've played from the year of 2019. So that's what we're going to be doing instead. So this will be a spoiler-free video. I won't be talking too in-depth about any of these games, as to be honest, it would take forever. But the way I'm going to structure this first I'm going to obviously talk about the games I didn't get around to playing. Then after that, talk about the games that I did play but did not finish. And then after that, I will be ranking every game that I did finish from the year. So let's get started. Let's get started with the games I did not get around to playing. So I should say I have not played any Switch or Xbox exclusives from this year. I am mostly a PS4 gamer. I have the ability to play stuff on PC, but I don't own an Xbox One or Switch as of right now. So because that, all those sort of games will be excluded from the list. Not because I don't like them, but just mostly it's a time thing, mostly at this point. But the games that are on PS4 that I still have not played, first up, we got Ace Combat 7. To be honest, I'm not a big Ace Combat guy, but I do hear that this game is very good. So I would like to give it a shot at some point, just did not get around to it. Ancestors, the Humankind Odyssey. As a massive Assassin's Creed fan, or I guess former Assassin's Creed fan, I was really excited for this game, as the creative director of this game is Patrice Désilets, the creative director of the first few Assassin's Creed games. But again, I haven't heard the greatest things about this one, so I wasn't too apt to pick that up right away. Borderlands 3 is a game that, again, got decent reviews, and I've played the previous 2 games in the series, or 3, I guess, if you include pre-sequel, and also Tales from Borderlands. I love Tales from Borderlands, but I never really cared for the original Borderlands games. They just weren't really my type of game from a gameplay perspective, so I wasn't too excited to give Borderlands 3 a shot. Call of Duty Modern Warfare, I hear it's very good. I hear this new Call of Duty game is very good, but I'm not a big Call of Duty guy. If I were to play Modern Warfare, the new one, like, it would be for its single player, and it's like I'm not going to spend anything more than like $15-20 for that, so have not ended up picking that up. Disco Elysium is a game I hear is very good. I would like to try it out at some point. It just doesn't really seem like my type of game, so I wasn't really too incentivized to give it a shot right away. Greedfall is a game I considered picking up, but I did not eventually get around to it. It looks like kind of like a lesser version of The Witcher, or I guess like more of a third-person Skyrim game. The Outer Wilds is a game, it's probably the game out of this list I do regret not playing the most. It is a game that seems really interesting in concept, but it just doesn't really feel like a game that I am gonna like, even though its concept is really cool. And the last game here that I'm gonna mention is the game that won Game of the Year, and that's Sekiro: Shadows Die Twice. And it's just not for me. I mean, I would like to play it at some point. It's just a game that's not for me. I mean, it's as simple as that. I mean, I've played the Dark Souls games. I played Demon Souls back in the day. It's just not a series that I personally enjoy playing nowadays. So I decided to let Sekiro go. But again, maybe down the road I will eventually play it. Now, there are a couple DLC/expansion sort of things that I do own, but I have not played the games that they are expansions of, so I did not get around playing them, those being Wolfenstein Youngblood and Far Cry New Dawn. And to be honest, I didn't really care enough to play them for this video, because to be honest, I don't even think they'll make it that high on the list anyway. So then let's talk about the games that I did actually play, but I did not finish. Starting off with Dead or Alive 6. And it was fine. It just seemed like a fine fighting game. I didn't really play too much of it, to be honest. This is one that was just kind of like a throwaway sort of thing, where I popped it in for like 20-30 minutes. Didn't come back to it. Not really much to say there. I did give Crash Team Racing a shot, and it was a fine kart racer. I mean, it's pretty much what you would expect. I have played the previous Crash kart racer games, and they were all fine. And this one's fine as well. Obviously, improved graphics. There is a single player that's sort of similar to like a Diddy Kong Racing sort of style thing. It's fine. But again, didn't feel too incentivized to finish it. Trials Rising is a game that I only played for about 45 minutes to an hour, but I had a lot of fun with. I mean, I played Trials Fusion in the past and really enjoyed that. Trials Rising, really enjoyed as well, and I think it might even be better than Trials Fusion, but I did not get around to finishing it. To be honest, a lot of that had to do with the time constraints of this video, but I do plan on eventually getting around and finishing as well. I just didn't feel too incentivized to finish it now, as, again, there's not really like a story there or anything. It's merely just a game that you pop in, you have some fun for like 30 minutes. Jump Force is a game that I started with every intention of fully finishing the game, but the game just has so many technical issues that it really stopped me from doing so. It's not a bad game on its own right. To be honest, if I did finish it, it would still probably rank last on the ranking that I'm about to do, as it's just kind of a mediocre fighting game with Shonen Jump characters, which is obviously its biggest appeal. I mean, I am a massive Dragon Ball and One Piece fan, but outside of those things, there's not really much of an appeal here. There's like a billion loading screens in this game. Like whenever you go into a fight, like a main story fight, there's like what, like 3 or 4 loading screens, with there being a loading screen between like every little sliver of a cutscene. And the game just kept on crashing on me. The game crashed on me, I think, at least 3 times, and that was the point where I was like, you know, screw it, I don't care anymore, I'm just gonna stop playing this. Next game we gotta talk about is MIDI Evil, the remake of the PS1 game, and it just isn't my type of game. I mean, I played it for about 30 minutes or so, and it just doesn't seem like it's my type of game. I mean, it's not bad for what it is, it's not for me. Concrete Genie is another game that I played, that I did play this without the VR. This is a game that they do tend on you playing it with the VR headset. I don't own it, but you can play it without it. And for me, this just felt very kiddie. I mean, it is pretty much like a kid's game. It felt like a game that was made for 8 to 10-year-olds, which it probably was. But for me, obviously being someone in their 20s now, it's like, it's not really something that really connected with me. There's certain mechanics that I was pretty impressed by, but overall, I just didn't feel too incentivized to finish it. So I dropped this one after about a couple hours. Now for the last 2 games I'm going to be mentioning in this section of the video, and these are 2 games that I really wanted to finish. Both these games were games that I thought were going to be within my top 10, but just something didn't click with me with both these games. So the first game I'm going to be talking about here is Days Gone. It just felt like my type of game, an open world game, narrative based. It's by Sony published game. I mean, it just seemed like something that I would really, really love, and I just didn't. Like, I played about 4 hours of it, and I just found myself really bored. I didn't really connect to the narrative that was going on or any of the characters. I didn't really connect to the gameplay. I felt like the gameplay for me just felt very annoying. I really didn't like all the micromanaging that you had to do, all the looting you had to do to get all new supplies. I didn't like... I mean, this is a very minor thing, but I really was annoyed by the fact that, like, for almost any interaction that you would have to do, you would have to hold the button to do so. It's like, why do I have to do that? It's like, why can't I just push it once? So yes, those are all minor annoyances, but it was enough for me to, like, just not really care about finishing the game. I do intend on eventually coming back to it. I mean, I do plan on eventually doing a video where I rank all of the PS4 exclusives, and obviously Days Gone and, to be fair, Concrete Genie and MIDI Evil are part of that. So I do plan on replaying Days Gone at some point, but for now, for the sake of this video, it just didn't really click with me, and because of that, I did not finish it. And this next one is a game that I really would have thought it would have been number, I don't know, 1, 2, 3 on the list. Like, I thought this would have been one of my top games of the year, but it turned out to not be, and that's Control. And Control got so much praise from critics, and I was really expecting to love it myself. And I played it, and the game is just not made for the PS4. That's really the main thing. It's like on the base PS4 that I do own, it just doesn't run well. There's a lot of frame rate issues, a lot of lag, and this really harms the combat, especially in bigger combat sections. Like, I did play about 4 hours of it, and I got to pretty much just a horde of enemies that you had to kill. The game would just lag whenever I tried to aim, and because I just got really frustrated and decided to just drop it. Like, I'm not really blaming it on the game itself. I'm more so blaming it on how I tried to play the game. Again, I think if I was playing this on PS4 Pro or playing this on PC, it would obviously run much better. But playing on the base PS4, it just wasn't the optimal experience. But to be fair, even before that, I was not really enjoying the narrative as much as I was hoping. It was fine. Like, it was okay. But considering all the praise I've heard about it, I was expecting it to be more into it than what I actually was. Now we're on to the games that I did finish, and there's one game that I did finish that I didn't feel comfortable putting on the list that I'm eventually going to be talking about, so we're just going to talk about it here, and that's Catherine Full Body. And I adore Catherine. Catherine is one of my all-time favorite games from back when I originally played it when it came out. And Full Body here is a remake, or technically it's an enhanced port. I thought that this was going to be more of a remake than what it actually turned out to be. Where I know, like, before the game came out, like, they said, oh, there's going to be a new love interest in Rin. There's going to be new gameplay modes and all that sort of stuff. So I was expecting this to be like a full-on remake, but just felt like more of the same game, especially if you don't go for the Rin ending. it's essentially the same game as the original, just with an easier mode there that allows you to pretty much just autoplay the puzzles. And I did play with that mode on during this playthrough that I did right before making this video, and I kind of really regretted it. I felt like a lot of the enjoyment from Catherine for me was doing these puzzles. So by making the puzzles so much easier, because in this mode, it takes away the ability to die, it takes away the special blocks within the game, and because that, I made the puzzles just super easy and kind of boring, to be honest. And I felt like that portion of the game is kind of what made me fall in love with Catherine to begin with. So I wasn't a big fan of playing it like that. Narratively, I still do love Catherine. I really like Vincent. I really like the arc that he goes through, particularly in the ending where you get the true Catherine Fouquet ending. I really love that story arc there. But overall, I just didn't feel comfortable putting on the main list because it's essentially just Catherine. And I feel like it's unfair to put a game that I played 10 years ago almost in 2011 in comparison to a lot of these other games where I played them for the first time in 2019. So because that, I didn't put Catherine on the list, but it is a game that I did actually finish. So now we're on to the actual games that I did finish, the list, the ranking here of 15 games that I finished. So let's just start off at number 15. At number 15, the worst game that I finished this year, I guess. I mean, to be fair, I don't dislike any of these games. While these first couple are pretty mediocre, they're not actively bad. And at number 15 here, I have the Dark Pictures anthology, Man of Medan, or Medan, either one. And I just found this game really boring. I mean, I did like Until Dawn. I mean, probably not as much as most other people, but I enjoyed it. And I was expecting Man of Medan here to be just as solid, but it just felt like a ripoff of it. I mean, it felt like they just took all the assets from Until Dawn and then just shoehorned it into a ghost story. I didn't find any of the characters here to be nearly as interesting as the characters of Until Dawn. Again, pretty much everything from gameplay, story, everything is pretty much just Until Dawn but on a ghost ship. And I never liked ghost ship sort of stories to begin with, so for me, didn't really attach to this one, though I wouldn't say it's a bad game, though. I mean, it's just very meh. Now at number 14, I have a game that I have very similar opinions of, and that is Erica. Now, Erica is an FMV game, which obviously means that it's pretty much just a movie that you interact with. And that's cool. I mean, obviously, this is a thing that was really big back in, like, what, the late 80s, early 90s, that sort of period. And it is weird to see that it's kind of had a more of a resurgence nowadays, and Erica is fine for what it is. It's not really a narrative that I really got too invested in. It is about this girl that tries to find out what happened to her dad. You make choices throughout the game. You interact with things like opening doors and that sort of stuff. It's okay. But usually with this sort of game, and the same thing goes with Man of Medan, I feel like incentivized to play them again after finishing them, to see all the different endings and that sort of stuff. But I just didn't feel like that with Erica here. I kind of just felt like I never needed to play the game again. So because that, Erica's here at number 14. But that being said, it's not bad. It's fine. At number 13, I have a game that, to be honest, I probably have more faults with than the last two that I talked about. But I also think there's higher highs in this, and that is Life is Strange 2. And Life is Strange 1 is one of my all-time favorite games. It's a game that, for some reason, I just really, really connected to, despite it having a bevy of narrative flaws. And here in Life is Strange 2, I have almost similar opinions of this that I had with Before the Storm, where it feels like they threw away everything I liked about Life is Strange 1 and kept everything I didn't like about Life is Strange 1, where we still have the dumb dialogue, we still have this sort of social justice warrior-esque narrative. But to be honest, I'm not as upset about it as it seems like a lot of the internet was, but either way. I just didn't find Sean and Daniel to be nearly as compelling characters as Max or Chloe. I think the time travel element of the first game was one of my favorite aspects of it, and that's obviously completely missing here. I mean, you even play as the character that doesn't have the superpowers in this game, and that's also another kind of underwhelming element of it. To be honest, I just found major parts of this game pretty boring. I mean, I really like the beginning of episode 1, but I found the second half of episode 1 pretty boring. I felt like the first half of episode 2 was pretty boring, but I liked the second half. I really loved episode 3, but then I found almost all of episode 4 and the beginning part of episode 5 just really dull. I mean, again, it's not an experience I really particularly enjoyed. I do plan on eventually doing a video on the Life is Strange series as a whole, so because of that, I will probably replay this game at some point, but it's not really a game that I enjoyed playing the first time, despite there being certain aspects of it that I enjoyed. I mean, the coming of age sort of narrative with Sean I thought was at least somewhat compelling, especially in episode 3. And I did like the little connection that they had between Life is Strange 1 and 2 within the final episode, but outside of that, not really my favorite game in the world. kind of bored me a lot of the way through, similar to the last two games on the list, so that's why it's here at number 13. Now, number 12, we're getting to the first gameplay-based game on the list, as the last three were all narrative-based games. And here at number 12, we have Piece Worldseeker, and I already mentioned this, that I'm a big One Piece fan, and I was actually pleasantly surprised with this game. I know this game got pretty mediocre reviews, and overall as a game on its own, it's not that great of a game. But as a One Piece game, I think it's the best One Piece game that's ever existed. I think it's an open world One Piece game. I mean, I've had fun playing as Luffy here. Now, obviously, there are aspects of it that are pretty mediocre. The open world itself isn't as fleshed out as I would like it to be. I think certain control things aren't particularly great. The combat is kind of just mediocre. The narrative is just kind of dumb, where it's like almost every major character within One Piece makes an appearance here for no real reason. But I really enjoyed playing it. I think it was just a fun open world action game. I mean, that's one of my favorite genres, are open world action RPGs, with games like obviously The Witcher 3, Horizon Zero Dawn, Assassin's Creed Origins, like that sort of game. And One Piece Worldseeker here tries to be those games, but within the One Piece world. And I think it does a decent job at that. Now, obviously, it's not a perfect game. It's number 12 out of 15 on my list here, so it's not great. But I think for what it's trying to be, I think it's actually pretty decent. Now, number 11, we have a game that I know a lot of people hated. A lot of massive fans of this franchise really disliked it. And I already did a video on this already, where I did talk about my disappointments with it. But I also really liked a lot of aspects of it as well, and that is Shenmue 3. I love Shenmue. I mean, I think it's a great series. It's a series that I didn't even play until last year, but more and more I think about it, the more and more I really enjoy the series as a whole. And Shenmue 3, I think, is a solid continuation of the narrative. I think one of the bigger disappointments from it, though, is that it's not as big of a leap from Shenmue 2 as you would expect. It's really, to be honest, more of the same, with some things being downgraded and some things being improved, which kind of just leaves it kind of at the same level of what Shenmue 2 brought us. Obviously, graphics are better, but it's like, compared to modern day standards, they're very mediocre, especially animation wise. Narratively, the narrative doesn't really move forward that much, but I still had a lot of fun playing this. Yes, there's a lot of filler in the game, and there's annoying little bits, but it's overall, I just loved going back into the world of Shenmue. And while this game could have been a lot better, and I do think it'll be a big disappointment if we don't eventually get a Shenmue 4. But if this is going to be a middle entry in the series, I think it's fine. It still keeps the charm that it had from all those previous games. So I personally still enjoyed it, and it ranks here at number 11. Now, number 10 is another game that I already talked about on this channel as well, and that is The Walking Dead, the final season. And I actually really anticipated this being higher on the list. It's actually kind of weird that it's not, considering I did actually really enjoy The Walking Dead, the final season. I thought it was a massive improvement upon A New Frontier. I don't like it as much as seasons 1 and 2, but I actually really like seasons 1 and 2. I think it has a great first half. I think episodes 1 and 2 of this season are fantastic. Two of my favorite episodes in all of The Walking Dead Telltale. However, I thought it faltered in the last couple episodes. Obviously, Clementine's a great character. I really like seeing her interactions with AJ. I thought a lot of the newer characters that were introduced were pretty solid as well. I did like that Telltale actually tried to make a game out of this, actually added a combat system to the game. And overall, I just really enjoyed the narrative as a whole. Again, there's a major misstep towards the end, but outside of that, I had a lot of fun with this. So while it is at number 10 here, I still really enjoyed it. Moving on to number 9, and it's another game that I've already talked about on the channel, and that is Metro Exodus. And I really loved the original two Metro games, especially Last Light. I thought Last Light was one of the best first-person shooter games I've ever played. And Exodus here takes a bit of a turn. Instead of becoming a linear narrative-based shooter like the original games, it becomes a open-world narrative-based shooter. And I just don't feel like it works as well. I think Metro worked so well being linear that here as an open world, it just becomes more bloated. I think it becomes a lot more like Far Cry in a way that I never really wanted Metro to be. Now, obviously, the original elements of the game are still there, so I mean, it's not like it's too far removed from the original series, but it's just not exactly a turn I wanted the series to take. That being said, I still really enjoyed the game. I think narratively, it was still a lot of fun. I really like the relationship between Artyom and Anna and Miller and all these other characters from the original games. I think the concept of the narrative was really, really interesting. And overall, the individual stories that are told in all these open worlds are particularly interesting as well. However, I don't like how disconnected they are. They all feel very episodic. But again, overall, I still had a very fun experience with the game. Now, if you want to hear me talk about my spoiler-filled thoughts on the game, go watch my Metro Exodus video. Now, number 8, we're finally to a game I haven't talked about yet on the channel. And it's a game that a lot of people really seem to love. And it's a game that I really thought I would love just as much, but I found myself very underwhelmed by it, and that is Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. It's a very solid 8 out of 10 game, but I was expecting a 9 out of 10. I was expecting this to be like mind-blowing experience, but it just came out of this kind of just it is obviously a single-player Star Wars game that seems to take a lot of inspiration from like Uncharted mixed in with combat of like Dark Souls, and I really like the combat system. I thought it was really fun. It really made you feel like a Jedi using the Force and using your lightsaber and stuff in combat. I think that was fun. The base gameplay again is pretty solid. Again, a lot like Uncharted, just climbing around, trying to find your way from A to B. I thought that was great. But there were a couple things that annoyed me. I mean, this game is structured like a Metroidvania game where there's a lot of backtracking, but then you backtrack in different ways. But I felt like in this game, the backtracking just annoyed me. I don't think it flowed nearly as well as something like God of War 2018, where that uses a Metroidvania style of gameplay as well, but I never felt annoyed with any of the backtracking within it, unlike I did with Jedi Fallen Order. Also, narratively, I just felt like this game was so pointless. I mean, yes, you get introduced to these new characters, and you get to see how they come together, but outside of that, this game does nothing narratively, and I felt like that was very underwhelming, considering all the praise I heard about it beforehand. So overall, for me, I just felt like this game was underwhelming. Again, I didn't think it was bad. I enjoyed my experience with the game. I just didn't find it as great as what other people were saying. Still a solid Star Wars single-player game, probably the best one we've had in a very, very long time, but I still found myself pretty underwhelmed by it. Now, number 7 is a game that I really had a lot of fun with. Now, this is not a game I would consider like a masterpiece by any means, but it's a game that I just simply had fun playing, and that is The Outer Worlds. Now, this game did get a whole bunch of great reviews, and it's considered like one of the best games of 2019. I don't personally even think that, to be honest. I think this game is filled with glitches. I think narratively it's just kind of dumb. Like, I don't even consider it as really that great of a game, but I just had fun playing it. I mean, it's really as simple as that. I mean, like, I had fun doing all these random missions, meeting all these weird characters, exploring all these new worlds, and that's really fundamentally what the game is, and it's fine. I mean, it's a Fallout ripoff. I mean, it's made by a team that did Fallout New Vegas, and they essentially just made a new Fallout game without using the Fallout property. And that's pretty much what this game is. What it is fine. Like, it's a solid game. Again, a game I had more fun with than any of the games I've talked about so far, and probably even more fun with than the next few games I'll be talking about on the list. But in terms of its actual quality, I didn't feel comfortable putting it above the next couple games on the list. Again, it's not a bad game. It's a solid experience, but for me, not really anything of true depth. Now we're moving on to number 6, which is a game that I have already talked about on the channel. It's a game I really enjoyed. I was actually very surprised at how much I enjoyed this game, and that is Devil May Cry 5. Now, the Devil May Cry series as a whole is just a series that's not for me, and because of that, I was fully expecting this to be kind of underwhelming to me, but I actually really enjoyed it. Like, I was very surprised at how much I enjoyed this game. It's a very solid hack and slash game, very similar to the previous Devil May Cry games with minor improvements. But I was very impressed by the use of 3 characters in this game and how each of those characters are diverse on their own right. And I really like what they did narratively here. I thought the narrative of this game was really, really fun. I think I like the way that they told it, where they're jumping around time periods. I really like certain mystery elements to it. I really like how the character V, connected to the overall narrative. I just found Devil May Cry 5 to be a great game. And again, I probably had more fun with The Outer Worlds than this game, but I was actually more impressed by what this game had to offer than with The Outer Worlds. So for me, it ranks here at number 6. Now, number 5, I have the game that I would consider, to be honest, to be the most perfect game from this year. And for me, the least flawed game of 2019 is Resident Evil 2. And I really enjoyed my experience playing this. However, it's just an experience that I don't really feel incentivized to ever do again. And that's kind of why I have it at number 5 here. Again, like, I think it's a better game. I think it's the best game of the year. I think 100%, hands down, level design-wise, game design-wise, pretty much just everything. I think it is the best game of the year. However, it just didn't connect with me as much. Again, I'm not a big Resident Evil guy. I loved Resident Evil 4 back in the day, but it's like outside of that, not really a big Resident Evil person. Never played Resident Evil 2 for more than, 30 minutes, an hour, the original I'm talking about. Well, obviously played Resident Evil 2 here. I did finish the Leon story. I did not go back and play the Claire story. I wouldn't mind doing it at some point, but To be honest, I think it takes a lot out of me just to play it one time. I'm not a big survival horror guy when it comes to games. I mean, horror films, I'm fine. Games, not as much. I remember when I played Resident Evil 7, it scared the shit out of me. And Resident Evil 2 is still kind of more of the same. To be honest, not as much. I mean, I don't think I was as terrified playing Resident Evil 2 as I was with 7. But still, things like Mr. X is like really freaking terrifying. But I just adored this game's game design. I think it was really impressive how, despite most of this game, like the first half of this game when you're in the police department, most of that is just backtracking. I mean, you're doing a lot of just going into rooms, finding like keys or just ways to get into new areas that you haven't been to before, then going to those new areas and then finding more new things that you can do, and you just do it over and over and over again. And that's something that you would think would be really boring and really annoying and tedious to do, but for me, I found it a lot of fun. I found that to be one of the most fun elements of the game. And I feel like for them to make that fun, that's very, very impressive. And also just to see how much of an improvement this is from the original game, I think that's really great as well. I even think narratively, I thought this game was a lot of fun. I think they were able to tell a fun, coherent narrative here. So, I mean, I have almost no faults with this game outside of the fact that it's not really my type of game. And that's really the only thing keeping it out of the #1 spot, because I do think this is a perfect game for what it's trying to be. But again, at the end of the day, it isn't for me, so I have it ranked here at number 5. Now at number 4 is a game that really, really shocked me. I did not expect to love this game as much as I did, and that is Judgment. And I have not played the Yakuza games, but Judgment here is a spin-off. It's a game that's completely disconnected from those games, so I decided to give it a shot. I was really surprised how much I liked it. I absolutely adored it. Again, it just feels like an evolution of Shenmue. I mean, as much as I love Shenmue, the Yakuza games were kind of the spiritual successor to Shenmue, and from what I understand, do it a lot better. And playing Judgment, I fully understand why. I mean, it feels like a better version of Shenmue. Now, I still love Shenmue for like the epic revenge narrative that's trying to tell, but in terms of gameplay, Judgment does it better in every single way. Yes, there's a lot of backtracking, I will admit that, but there's shops you can go to, there's like mini games you can play, all that is fun. And even then, I thought the main narrative was pretty strong as well, where he plays this detective and through this game, he tries to solve a case, and I thought the case had some pretty interesting twists and turns here and there. I think the combat was pretty solid, definitely better than what we got from Shenmue 3. And overall, I just really like the detective aspects of this game. I mean, it's not without its flaws. I mean, there's tailing missions in the game, and they're really, really terrible. There's a lot of filler in the game where they force you to do side quests for like no real reason. But overall, I just really had a lot of fun with this game. Again, I thought narratively this was just a really fun detective story. So for me, really enjoyed it. Ranks here at number 4. Now number 3, and these top 3 for me were very, very close. I mean, I constantly switched around between these top 3. And really, I made a last second change for my number 1, but number 3 here has kind of stayed where it is for a little while, and that is A Plague Tale: Innocence. I think A Plague Tale is another one of the best games of the year. I think, like Resident Evil 2, I think this game does what it's trying to do near flawlessly. It is a great narrative-based single-player experience where most of the game revolves around stealth sections, which again is something that I didn't think I would like. I'm not a big stealth guy, but I think this game does it very well, where it kind of turns the entire game into a big sort of human piece puzzle. I guess really that's the way you can look at stealth games as a whole. I really like the crafting system in this game. I thought visually this game was very, very impressive. Narratively, I thought this game was great. Again, I really like the relationship between Amicia and Hugo. I think the lore of this series is very interesting, and I'm really interested to see the future of the Plague Tale series. Like, I just think overall, this is a very fun single-player experience with a very strong narrative. Essentially, everything that I would love in a game, but at the same time, it is pretty small scaled. I mean, it is not as grand of a game as these next 2 games I'll be talking about. So because that kind of lands here at number 3, but at the end of the day, again, all these games are very, very close for me. Now number 2, and this was tough. Number 2 here was my number 1 game of the year for a very long time. Number 2 has to be Death Stranding. And I loved Death Stranding. I know this game gets a lot of hate. It's like, oh my god, it's just a delivery simulator. And I mean, yeah, gameplay-wise it is. That is what it is. But I really enjoyed that delivery simulator. I think the level of progression within the game is very solid. I really liked delivering the packages from location to location. I liked how they kept on introducing new things to help you deliver these things after every single mission. I like how the missions were structured, where each chapter would focus around a certain character and you doing tasks for that character. And overall, again, I really enjoyed the gameplay despite it being relatively bare bones. But the narrative is the main thing that really sticks out to my mind here, obviously. I think narratively, this is a really impressive feat of world building and lore. And out of any game that came out this year, this was the game I was the most impressed with what it was able to do narratively. And the type of narratives that really stick out to my mind are those epic tales that really have this massive sense of, again, world building and lore. That's why I love something like One Piece so much. And I felt like Death Stranding is a good setup for a massive scaled narrative like that. I really love the character of Sam Porter Bridges, and I think he has a great arc throughout the course of this game. Yes, the narrative does get convoluted here and there, but overall I still had so much fun with it. And the reason why I got bumped down from number 1 to number 2 isn't because I like this game any less than I did when I originally played it. It's mostly because I feel like the game that's at number 1 has continued to stick with me more than Death Stranding. But I still enjoy Death Stranding as much as I did the first time I played it. It's a great game overall. It lands here at number 2. But at number 1, the number 1 game of the year is a game I have already talked about on the channel. But even when I was talking about it there, I was kind of a bit more mixed on it. I mean, I definitely enjoyed it a lot, but I was definitely a little bit lower on it than I am now. And now I've come to really, really, really enjoy this game. And I can't believe I'm saying this is my game of the year for 2019, my favorite game out of all these that I've played, and that's Kingdom Hearts 3. And I don't know what it is. It's really weird because, like, I finished it and it ranked number 3 initially. But I thought about more. I was like, okay, yeah, I think it's better than A Plague Tale. And I thought about more and more and more. And I continued to watch videos of other people playing Kingdom Hearts 3. Watch videos of people playing Remind. Start analyzing the narrative of Kingdom Hearts. And I was just like, I can't not put Kingdom Hearts 3 at number 1 now. It's like, I feel so connected to this franchise at this point, despite me not even liking the gameplay that much. I think it's fine. I mean, it's not something that, again, I'm not someone that plays games for difficulty. I think if I were to play data battles that are in Remind, I would be really frustrated. But for me with Kingdom Hearts 3, it's really the narrative that really connected with me. And, like, again, the Disney World stuff, I don't care about any of that in Kingdom Hearts. Such a great conclusion to the Xehanort saga, and really wraps up so many storylines in a very satisfying way. We see all these characters that we've never thought we would see together finally come together, and it really just feels like the Avengers Endgame for Kingdom Hearts, and I really adored that. And I still stand by this. I do really enjoy the combat system of this game more so than the previous games. I mean, yes, it's a bit dumbed down from what we got in Kingdom Hearts 2, but I really enjoy it still. I mean, I had more fun with the gameplay of Kingdom Hearts 3 than I did with any of the previous games in the series. I really just love conclusions to massive storylines, and that is Kingdom Hearts 3's biggest boon for me. Like, I feel like all the setup that Kingdom Hearts has done through the course of, 17 years, all led to the last, 6 hours of Kingdom Hearts 3. And that 6 hours was one of the greatest blocks of gaming I've ever experienced. And because of that, I just felt it was very, very tough to not rank it at number 1, despite me thinking that, Death Stranding and A Plague Tale were more consistent experiences the entire way through. For me, Kingdom Hearts 3 just had the best moments of the entire year for me. So for me, I have to rank it here at number 1 and essentially name it my game of the year for 2019. So there we go. That is every game I have played from the year of 2019. So yeah, that was long. So yeah, this was a long process. I mean, I started playing these games, at the end of November of 2019. So the fact that it took me this long to eventually play all these games and make this video, it really feels like a long journey that's finally concluded here. But there we go. And I've been thinking about this a bit here. I would actually like to go back and do a similar video to this for previous years in gaming, for 2018, 2017, 2016, go back in time, a year at a time. I think that is something I might attempt to do down the road, but again, it's probably going to take a while considering, again, this video took forever to make. But again, I had a lot of fun while making it, so at least there's that. But that's the video. That's every game I played from the year of 2019, and also my ranking of every game that I finished from 2019. Thank you for watching.